They would probably be excused from serving on the jury. In fact, I would almost guarantee that they would be excused from serving on the jury.
Wouldn't that be a giveaway to all the rest of the jurors as to what they're dealing with?
Yes.
The criminality of it all?
Well,
to be blunt, polite, diplomatic.
People have been educated in government schools to believe that government is, in fact, sometimes the highest authority in known existence. And so if you ask them, if you're in the courtroom, which is the higher authority, your creator or the judge, they will say, oh, well, in the courtroom, of course, the judge is the only authority. They will say that.
The judge makes them take an oath, and that can be pretty intimidating. An oath to follow the law as the judge gives it to them.
Is that the oath?
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome to the Soviet Union. How are juries selected, and how has this changed during the history of our country?
It's mostly a random process as far as getting the jury pool assembled. They have a jury wheel, which is randomly selected from driver's license lists and voter registration lists. And so the people who show up come from those lists. And at that point, it's fairly random. But then you get into the voir dire process, which can be really intrusive and really invasive of privacy. And then they do their best to select the lowest common denominator among the jury pool and eliminate anybody who, in many cases, has any education. They certainly eliminate anybody who seems to be a rebel or has any kind of independent thought going on. And we think that, in contrast, what should happen is that the first 12 jurors that are there, as long as they don't have any personal interest in the case, a relative on trial or a business relationship, or that sort of thing. Other than that, the first 12 there should be seated. Then you have a random jury. But if you had that, then you might get a lot more nullification going on, and that would be highly inconvenient. That's expensive for the government, and it's embarrassing for the prosecutor.
Early in our country's history, Aaron, potential jurors were brought in, and they were asked if there was any compelling reason they could not render a fair verdict, and if there was, they were excused, and the rest were seated, or 12 were seated from that group. And as Don said, people were only excused from jury duty if they knew one of the litigants or they were the cousin of the victim or something like that. Other than that, we trusted each other to render a fair and reasonable verdict, and it seemed to work very well. And, of course, juries, again, at that time refused to enforce bad laws.
Well, let me ask you a question, if you wouldn't mind speculating, as to why we don't trust each other as much anymore.
I think it's because we have been taught, many of us have been taught, in government schools, that rather than place our trust in each other, we should place our trust in government. When you are bombarded constantly with, don't trust this merchant, we need more laws to protect you, the consumer, from buying his cookies because, he may be trying to kill his customers, or don't trust this man to provide you with safe working conditions because obviously he doesn't care about his workers, and so government will protect you. When we're taught that we need to send our children to government schools because homeschoolers obviously abuse their children and don't teach them anything and keep them isolated and probably working at sweatshop labor. So I hear these horror stories. Most of these alarms that are being raised, and they're all around us, come to us from statists and government employees who have a vested interest in protecting their paycheck and their positions of power. I'm not saying that they even do this consciously. It's how they live.
Do you think that all of the things that you've been talking about here might be the overlying reason or the fundamental reason why jury nullification is not taught in schools? I would think if you even went to law school, they're not teaching this. Or am I wrong?
You're correct.
Right. It would shift the balance of power in this country if it were unfettered, and obviously the powers that be that control the schools and the media and such don't want to see that happen. A lot has been invested in getting the government grown to the place it is right now, and they don't want to do anything to upset that apple cart.
Yeah, you talked about jurors being punished, a couple hundred years ago. What about today?
There have been at least a couple cases that I know of where it was attempted. Maybe Elo knows more, but in one case, a juror in Colorado was convicted for apparently, supposedly not being forthcoming during the questioning and not volunteering information, and that was overturned on appeal. Then there was a case in Idaho that just concluded, and those charges were dropped. So I'm not actually aware of anywhere charges have actually stuck.
I'm not either. But what has happened, Aaron, over the last 20 years or so, and especially since FEJA's been around to tell people about their authority or remind them of their authority as jurors, we're seeing far fewer jury trials as people are so afraid of the machinery of the government justice or injustice system that they will plead out rather than risk any kind of a trial because they're fearful. They realize that the judge probably will not allow all of the evidence that they need to present for their defense to be heard by the jury. They're fearful that they will lose and receive some kind of mandatory maximum sentence or mandatory minimum sentence. It's very long. They know by the time they have been caught up in the cogs of this machine of the legal system, they can see that they are going to be fearfully abused and that justice will probably not be rendered, and so they will do anything to hide from worse punishment than they may get if they simply plead out and take something. And another side of that, of course, is that for most of these people, they have families, and going to trial and mounting a defense can decimate a family financially. And so if they want their wives and children, their wife and child or whatever, to have anything left while they are in prison, the odds being good that they will go whether they're innocent or not, then it's best if they just plead out and at least leave their family with their home and their meager savings.
Well, all right. So let us speculate a little. We have a nation full of people who fear the government, a government that apparently is so corrupt that it's not, you simply can't fix it. What do we tell people to do to bring back a Bill of Rights culture?
Some things I tell them to do personally and also as part of FEJA. I tell them whoever the incumbents are in office, vote them out. Change them every 4 years till they get the idea that we aren't putting up with career despots in office. Serve on juries. Run to serve on juries. And unless they show you a dead person, not a violated statutory law put in by some bureaucrat, unless they show you a harmed human being